Investor Intelligence provides general information only. You should consider seeking independent advice to see how this information relates to your unique circumstances. Please refer to the terms and conditions available at investorintelligence.com.au for more.
Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Investor Intelligence, brought to you by the team at the Property Mentors. It's your weekly podcast for all things investment. I am your host, Phoebe Sikowski-Wallace, and back with me for a second week in a row is Herman Benade, who is the Mentor Team Director here for the Property Mentors. Welcome back, Herman.
Thanks for having me. Nice to be back.
Of course. So now we did a fantastic episode last week, if I do say so myself. And, following on from that episode, that was all to do with career planning, why it's important to plan your career, the way you would plan your property portfolio. And we kind of wrapped that episode talking about career progression. And all in all, career progression leads us to that topic of, potentially earning more. Certain incomes obviously allow for certain borrowing capacities or loan amounts. And in addition to, the amount we earn, even things like lifestyle can determine how quickly you can save up for a deposit. And you and I both know that investing takes time, it takes money. And so in a lot of situations, if there's no pay increase or increases over time, would you say it's harder to progress your portfolio?
Oh, definitely. If you think about it like a car and you're putting fuel in your car, your salary is the fuel. If the salary runs out, the car's going to stop moving forward.
Yeah. And so let's talk about pay rises then. So first of all, for most, I can almost safely say that there wouldn't be many people out there who feel comfortable or confident to ask for a pay rise, regardless of whether they deserve it or not. Some people are lucky enough to be offered a pay rise, but a lot of the time people really do have to go out there and make it happen themselves. So what are some of the things that people should consider before they ask for a pay rise?
Well, first you need to talk to your broker and get an understanding of what you actually need, right? So
yeah,
the broker tells you need a 50K increase, then you're not going to go and ask for a 50K increase. And if you do, good on you. But first find out how much you need. And a lot of the time, it's not a lot. We deal with this with our members all the time. It's 5K, 10K here, which is possible to get. For me, I don't understand why you wouldn't. I think you need to answer this question first. Am I adding value to the business? And the value that I'm adding to the business, is that more than what I'm getting paid at the moment? Going to have to think about it a little bit. So if you listen to our previous podcast and you've got an understanding of what the business does, and if it's a product-based business or service-based business, how much income do they make? Do they have capacity to actually give you a pay rise? Or are you working for a mom and dad type business and really kind of what comes in goes out? Then you need to ask those questions first, and then you'll feel a lot more confident when you actually go and ask for it. So I would say the first thing is, do you deserve one? Answer that question first. And if that's a solid yes, not an egotistical thing, but a solid, I'm here first in the morning, I'm here last at night, and I add value to the business, then start thinking, start planning, asking for it. Everything needs a plan.
Yeah. And even things like, are you underpaid for the work you're doing? Do you feel like you're doing two people's jobs?
Yeah.
I don't know, have your responsibilities increased over time? Has your salary stayed the same? There's so much to consider there.
Yeah. Well, first, I would use tools again, like LinkedIn, Seek. Seek is a really good tool where essentially you type in your job, you type in where you live, and it will tell you whether you're getting paid market rate, below market rate, or above
Yeah.
market rate.
Oh, that's great. I didn't know Seek did that. And there's also Glassdoor and Fishbowl as well, which are great, but I didn't know that about Seek. That's great.
I would definitely go with Seek over Glassdoor is really good if you want some insight in terms of what the culture is like for the business.
Yeah.
But Seek owns the monopoly in Australia on job ads, really.
Sure.
So the amount of data that they gather, it will give you a really good indication on whether you're being paid fairly or not. Now, also good to understand if your job title is, I'll just go back to sales consultant, but you're also doing all the administration in the business. You're also doing reception duties. You're basically a bit of an all-rounder. Read that job description and go, okay, well, am I doing one person's job? Am I doing two people's job? Not that your business is taking advantage of you, but stuff happens in life and you get given more responsibility, but for some reason that pay rise conversation doesn't happen as often as really what it should.
Yeah.
So once you have a clear understanding of where you sit in the market, right?
Yeah.
Then you basically, and you've identified that the business has capacity to actually give you a pay rise, and you might not know that 100%, but you need to give it a bit of thought, and you believe you've got a solid case to why you need one, then go and ask for it, right? It's really important to get in the right mind frame first, right? It's not like your business is doing you a favor by giving you a pay rise. You've got a contract with your employer, your time and skill set in exchange for a salary. So once you've done all your checks, basically you want to book an official meeting, okay? So don't just rock up to your manager's desk and say, hey, I need a pay rise. Definitely don't do it. Don't.
So no Friday night drinks or anything like that? That's not the time to do it.
You're not going to get it, essentially. Don't ask in front of other employees in the business. So book a meeting and tell your manager what the meeting's about. Don't just spring it on them, because that gives them time to kind of go, okay, well, I know what's coming. The person deserves it. So you might walk out of that meeting with the actual pay rise, right? So don't expect the worst. Don't expect the no, because if you've ticked those first three boxes, your employer is probably thinking the same thing you are.
Yeah. And don't do it over text either. You wouldn't ask someone to, I don't know, marry you over text. It's probably a bad example, but it kind of reminds me of
Very
that.
bad example.
Yeah.
You would break up with someone over text, though.
Yeah, you would say no, wouldn't you?
Have a burning question you want answered on an upcoming episode? Each month, we take questions from our listeners and put them to our resident expert, Luke Harris. With more than 2 decades of residential and commercial investment experience under his belt, Luke has seen the best and the worst of the property market. Visit investorintelligence.com.au/questions and ask us today.
And then you just want to go and get your confidence up. You've got a plan. You know your value. Before that meeting, go in with a solid case. If you just ask and you don't give a reason to why, you're probably not going to get the result that you're looking for. But if you go in there, you ask for a specific amount, you explain to them why you want that money. So I would like to add another property to my portfolio.
Yeah.
Here's the reasons why I believe I deserve this pay increase. If you work for anyone worth anything, they would at least consider it.
Yeah.
Right. And then if it's a no, right, and you feel very strong on it, jump on Seek again, type in your job, see who else is advertising for a position like yourself. I'm not saying you have to leave the business and have a tantrum about it, but it's worth going out there and just exploring your options, because at the end of the day, again, your business isn't going to be there in retirement, right? You're going to have to fend for yourself in a couple of years in property investment, it's actually a really long time.
Yeah. And I think even just putting in that effort, you've done your research, you've come to the table, you've given warning about what you want to talk about. Even that kind of shows how serious you are. But also there's that kind of aspect of a lot of the times it's more economical for businesses to give someone like a current employee a pay rise than to recruit and train someone up again.
Yeah, massively. So particularly if you're in a job that's got a skills shortage in Australia, which a lot of jobs currently have, it's either going through Seek, which costs a lot of money to advertise, right? And then you've got the time of managers doing the interviews. You've got someone not in that position, not adding value to the business for however long. And then most people have a 4-week notice period. So that's the 4 weeks after offering the job to the person actually starting. If you're asking for $5,000, the company's basically making money if they give you that 5K.
That's a great way to look at it.
Increase. And if you're in a super specialist role, they would probably need to go to a recruitment consultant, which could charge them anything up to $35,000.
Yeah, wow.
To go and find, or even more, but like as a roundabout figure, it's not a cheap exercise at all. And that's even if you can find someone.
Yeah, it's kind of like that saying. It's something like it's easier to keep a customer than make a new one. Yeah. But yeah, I think that's another really good thing to keep in mind. So Herman, it's one thing to talk about this, but how have the property mentors, as people who are guiding their members, what have they sort of seen in regards to people wanting to increase their borrowing capacity and save for deposits faster? So
I think the first thing is just to ask. So we deal with members all the time. Malika Kingwell, which is one of our mentors here, has had actually 2 clients in the last quarter that both needed a pay rise to be able to service a loan for the next investment property. And she sat down with them, basically gone through everything that I've just discussed with you over the last 2 podcasts. They got a plan together. They went to go and ask for the pay rise and they got it. So, and more than what they actually asked for in one scenario. So, I think just asking is probably the most important thing. I would put a caveat on that, right? If you're going to go into that meeting and you're going to say, hey, I've been on Seek and I can see all the other businesses are paying $80,000 and you're paying me $70,000, right? That's not a good way about doing that because you're making the meeting confrontational. It needs to be about what value you add to the business. And the fact is your boss isn't going to fire you because you asked for a pay rise. All that they're going to say is no. So by you not asking, you're doing yourself a disservice.
Yeah.
Essentially, providing you deserve it.
Yeah, I think that's really important to because I think a lot of people would almost not go and ask for pay rises because of that fear that, I don't know, they could get fired, but I don't think you'd have to have a pretty rubbish boss to fire you just for asking.
You legally can't.
Oh, well, there you go.
Right. So
even better.
An employer cannot fire you for simply asking for a pay rise. If anything, it's going to make your employer think, I don't want to lose this person. They might not say yes now because it might not be the right time for the business, but you might get it in a month, right? Or you might get it in a couple of months. If they don't know that you're not thinking about it.
Yeah, so basically don't view that if it is a no or if it's a not right now, don't view that as that's the end. That's I've done everything I can. Maybe that's a chance to say, well, hey, can we review in 3 months, in 6 months?
Yeah. And most good managers will say exactly that.
Yeah.
Would say, hey, this is where the business is at the moment. Would love to do it, but we just can't. Can you give us a couple of months? And then that's better than at least you've got a plan. It's like what I mentioned in the first podcast that we did. You can't make emotional decisions when you invest, and you can't make emotional decisions when you're planning your career. And that little milestones that I said you need to map out to get to where you want to end up at the end of the day. asking for pay rises is one of those milestones. It's something that's integral to your progression, right? If it's not a pay rise, you might ask for a promotion. That's part of the plan. And when you go into that meeting, remove all emotion from it, because it's not an emotional decision. It is a business decision.
Yeah. No, I love that. So Herman, thank you so much for sitting down with me today. I know, again, so many people are going to find the information from this episode and our last episode so valuable. And I mean, hopefully it even makes something like asking for a pay rise less scary. But thank you so much for your time today.
It's my pleasure. Thanks, Phoebe.
If you found this episode or any of our episodes helpful, please make sure to share and leave a rating to help us reach more people on their investing journeys. And of course, subscribe to be notified when new episodes drop. Make sure to follow the podcast on Instagram at Investor Intelligence Podcast. You can find links to our other socials in the show notes, including a link to the Property Mentors weekly blog. If you're ready to get your property portfolio in shape for financial freedom, check out Luke's latest book, Property Fit. You can get yourself a copy at www.propertyfitbook.com.au.